Um, James and the Giant Peach. Okay. So, James is a boy who his parents went off and, like, went to buy cigarettes and never came back. Both of them at the same time. They really like to smoke. So he was left on alone in the world. And he ended up being taken in by his sweet old aunties. They were kind of insane and mean and abusive, but hey, that's the thing. So James is basically living like Harry Potter did with the Dursleys. And all of a sudden, his version of Hagrid comes magically along one day and gives him a bag of magical bean worm things that glow. They're very glowy, and they're magical. And this creepy old guy gives him magic beans, magic worms. They look like beans, don't they? Okay, so the guy gives them, and then he takes them, and James, being the uneducated, abused child he is, accidentally spills them all on the ground, and is kind of screwed over from having his magic worms. Little did he know the magic worms would inhabit the lonely peach tree that was as sad and as abused as James was. And they caused a giant peach to grow. James's evil, crazy aunts, being the greedy bitches they are, decided, let's monetize this shit, as anybody who'd had a giant peach grow in their yard overnight would. So they decided to sell the peach to the people to come look at it. And it was a huge success. But James, being a poor orphan who was starving all the time and abused, he decided, fuck that, I'm going to eat the damn peach so they can't have it. So he eats the peach. But while he's eating it, he actually eats his way inside of it. Much in the way I eat my way inside of women, but that's another story. So on the way into the peach, he ingests one of the gross magical bean worms. And that is totally what happens. And he ends up in the giant peach. And he decides, when he's in the peach, he discovers that there's now giant mutant bugs that also ate the magical bean worms. And they want to be James's friend because they also hate the aunts. And they all decide, let's go to New York City, because you can apparently see it across the ocean. I'm guessing they live in New Jersey or something. So they decide, let's go from New Jersey to New York City in this giant peach. New Jersey is across the water from New York, right? Or is that Boston? It's some city. Nobody cares. So they decide to steal the power of the sacred... I should close out of my game. So they decide to use the magical power of flying birds to take an excursion to New York City. During said trip, they are attacked by ghost pirates, and I think there's a shark in there somewhere. And there's some monster made of lightning. And James, and the power of his giant bug monster creatures, is able to fight off all of these menaces and make it to New York City. However, they run into an unexpected issue in that they are flying in this giant peach and didn't think about how to get down. So they have to cut the birds loose, and then they fall on the Empire State Building. Probably costing the city thousands and thousands of dollars of damage, but that's another story. With his peach being giant and being spewed all over the city, he helps the homeless problem go away because they all get to eat peaches, and he becomes famous. And I guess the city or somebody gives him a ton of money, and now he owns like a high-end condo in Manhattan. And he lives there with the bugs and is a hero. The end. James and the Giant Peach, everybody. Right from memory. Better than going to watch the movie yourself. I don't see how that's wrong, guys. That was absolutely correct. There's no way that wasn't correct. That was so correct, you just don't realize it's that correct.